Big game for the New York Red Bulls and for FC Dallas, round of 16 in the Open Cup. Ryan, thanks for coming on, giving us a couple minutes. A Dallas team that, we don't know much about because of the East-West thing, and you're never quite sure when you're going to see anybody in what was the strangest group maybe in Open Cup history. The two MLS teams are the ones that come out of it for this round of 16 game. And I think in some ways a very familiar spot, a very like-minded spot for both, each coming off a derby loss in a rivalry game over the course of the weekend. If you can, just give us maybe a little bit of a state of where things sit right now with Dallas.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even less familiar from a New York standpoint because the team that went to New York last year in 2024, maybe one to three of those guys are going to be involved tomorrow. So, I mean, there's been a ton of turnover in the roster. That's been sort of the story of the season. Bringing in Eric Quill, the a first-year head coach, and with that, basically flipping the roster, 18 new players this year. So there's been definitely a process, some ups and downs in terms of coalescing and gelling, chemistry within the team, all of that. So there have been some real high points. I think the win at Miami was a really high point, and the win in opening week against Houston was certainly one to look back on. But yeah, particularly the home form has been a difficult thing, and I think the fact that this game is on the road might come as a welcome thing for the team because they've been really good on the road. Just the one loss. It was a big win against San Diego, but they started the season 6 games unbeaten on the road, and that's difficult to do. So this team can definitely go places and fight and compete with anybody on the road in this league.
When you think of it, with all the roster turnover, clearly there's always that gelling together piece that sometimes takes a little bit longer. When you look at this FC Dallas team, talk to the coaches, the players, is that kind of where they feel like things are at? Like things just haven't necessarily come together? Because at least from the outside looking in, you look on paper, it's a fairly talented team overall.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing is that in the offseason they added a lot of individual quality and particularly in areas that I feel like it was missing last year. I mean, you've got, somebody like Anderson Julio who doesn't jump off the page like Lucho Acosta does, but he's so effective in what he does as being sort of that pacey winger, that outlet, that goal scorer from the outside. And obviously you add Lucho Acosta and one that I'm trying to spread the gospel on is Osaze Urquide, our new center back, who I just think he's phenomenal. I think he's one of the best defenders in the league. And obviously, it's difficult to get the name out there, particularly in Dallas, who doesn't get as much, national media attention. But I think you'll see in this game the qualities that he can bring. But as far as the chemistry within the team, I think that's just it. I think we know the individual qualities there, and it's come out in plenty of moments throughout the season. I mean, looking back, our last goal that we scored was against RSL. That's just Anderson Julio taking the ball up the right side all on his own, nice dribble run, and scores it himself. So when you have that individual quality in the roster, there's those players and those moments where you can win points or get results in knockout tournaments like this. So I think the fact that there is that individual quality and the team is bought in collectively in terms of mentality and fighting, a sort of unity within the group. Those are really positive signs to me. I think the last piece to come is sort of that tactical chemistry, and I think we will see it eventually, and maybe as soon as tomorrow.
Clearly, the question I think for both teams, and not asking you to reveal anything, is what's the roster going to be for everyone? Because, just like Dallas, Red Bull, super busy month of May. Travel's been crazy. I know for you guys, you're coming east and then going back to the west for another weekend game with Seattle.
Cross country, yeah.
For Red Bull, their travel schedule has been very difficult in Miami to Colorado, a stopover in Nashville with a midweek game. So you're not really quite sure. I don't feel like, at least on our side, and I would imagine for you, it's a knockout game. So you got to put a good lineup out there, but you also can't throw away points in a regular season game or run guys into the ground during the month of May.
Yeah, obviously it's a very difficult balance. I think this might end up being the most difficult stretch of the schedule throughout the entire season. I mean, 5 games in 14 days. One of those being this knockout game, which could go to extra time, could go to penalties and add that extra fatigue on legs. So there's definitely a balance to be struck. But even against the USL League One team at home in the round of 32, Eric Quill he went with a very strong team. He started Lucho Acosta, he started, his pretty much his starting back line and rotated just a few pieces here and there. So I'd expect him to go pretty strong with this lineup. I don't have any insider information on that, but just based on what he said, the importance of this tournament to the club and the opportunity that it presents, he's been talking about it since we first entered in the round of 32. It's 5 finals, and that's the verbiage that he's continued, here in the round of 16. It's another final for them and a chance to earn a spot in the quarters. So I think they will go strong, and we'll see how strong when the lineups drop.
Finish with this one, Ryan, if you can, and that would be obviously a name super familiar to Red Bull fans and Lucho Acosta, his time with Cincinnati his time before that with DC. He's a guy that has definitely vexed this Red Bull organization over the course of his time in the league. Where is he at with fitting in with FC Dallas?
I think that is still the biggest piece that still needs to come together for this team is finding the best way to integrate him because his style of play is so unique, and obviously it's been so effective in this league as a former league MVP a couple seasons ago. But he really likes to build individual relationships with players on the field, whether it's a winger like Orejano was for him in Cincinnati, or a forward like he had with Vasquez for a period in Cincinnati as well. Just having that chemistry, the ability to play 1-2s, progress the ball up the field, that's so important to his game. And I think it's starting to come along, particularly with Petter Musa, who we know is obviously a really high quality striker in this league, an all-star last year. But outside of that, he hasn't really built any consistent chemistry with anyone else on the roster yet. And I think once he can start to build that, I mean, we've seen some things with Pedrinho, who's a player who came up from our second team last year that were MLS Next Pro champions. He's a great player. He's kind of in and around the squad, a rotational starter, and he has some chemistry with Lucho. But outside of him and Musa, I think it hasn't clicked at the level that it can get to. And once he starts to get that chemistry right with the team around him, obviously we'll see him return to the levels that he was at in Cincinnati. I was encouraged, despite the result against Houston, that he actually completed 6 out of 6 dribbles because that has been something that has been a struggle for him. I know he dealt with a little bit of an ankle injury and he was struggling to beat the first man, which is so integral to his style of play. So I think seeing him get back and beating guys on the dribble against Houston and seeing Musa back in the lineup, somebody who he has good chemistry with, I think can really unlock him. And like you said, he's had good success against New York in the past, so we're hoping for some more of that.
Two teams that need a win to get into the quarterfinals. Ryan, thanks for coming on, giving us a couple minutes. Look forward to this game tomorrow. Should be a fun one.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.